morning, everyone. Today is going to be a day of sharpening chisels and planes, but I wanted to show you the project that I've been working on that made my chisels and planes so dull lately. So for the next few minutes, just watch this part one of a deck box build. There's going to be two parts to the video because it's really an involved thing. The wood that we are using is not new. It's all reclaimed wood, primarily from a fence that blew down. And so the wood is it's cedar, but it's 12 years old and it's very warped in many places. So 90% of the time that I've spent on getting this deck box built has been prepping the wood that I'm using to make, lumber that is generally consistent. So that's the disadvantage of using scrap wood all the time, because obviously you don't have control over the quality of the wood. But enjoy the video, and there will be a part two coming up real soon. I'm around 75% done with the deck box, but I've got to prepare more wood, and that's why I need my planes and chisels nice and sharp. Enjoy.
I made a plywood pattern, marking it at 36 inches on either side for the width of the box, and at 1.5 inches for a little bit of depth, so that I would have some room. Then I marked a center line at 18 inches between those 2 points, and drew that center line out. Then I screwed in some supports for a 4-foot yardstick. Then I bent the yardstick against those supports and used that to draw my curve. After that, it was just a matter of cutting it out with a very dull jigsaw. And that left me with both a positive and negative pattern. I made an angled mark 90 degrees to the edge of the curve and 1 foot away from that 1.5 inch mark at the 36-inch point. Used it to set my bevel gauge and then transferred those angles to the other side of the pattern and to the lumber that I was going to use to make the frames. I found that if the outside edges of the frame, the outside boards of the frame, were cut at half the angle that the inside board of the frame was, or half the angle from 90 degrees, I got a good curve. Then I roughly marked and then laid out the rabbets that were going to be used for the half-lap joints. And then I began cutting them out by hand. The miter saw was unsuitable for this, as its depth stop would not hold, so I had to do them all by hand. And after that, I drilled 3/8 inch holes through the laps to accept pegs for the glue up. Then I ran the frames through the bandsaw to get a rough curve, which I would refine later on using my belt sander. Now it was time to start building the frame for the box. On the first frame, I decided that I would cut a rabbet 3/4 inch by 3/4 inch down the length of the first board, and then use that as the model to cut the rest of the rabbets with my portable circular saw. Plus it gave me an excuse to use my rabbet plane. box, the base of the box turned out to be square, despite my best efforts. The top of the box did not, because the supports are warped. But I will adjust that. Now comes the time to apply the boards to the lid. I've marked the center point on one of the arches and the halfway point on one of the boards. This is in the center. And then I had to plane down many of the edges of these boards, as I mentioned earlier, because the wood was so old it had warped and twisted in multiple directions. So just to get a relatively smooth meeting joint, butting up abutment joint, I had to do a lot of planing. Then it was just screwing them together to the two outside frames. Again, adjustments will be made. No glue has been applied yet. And then one board at a time, making sure that everything squares up once I put it on the box. And then I found the midpoint and added the third frame for stability in the middle. Here's what the bottom frame and the lid look like. You can see that they are slightly off. That's alright, I still have to add a facing board to the lid and square everything up.